What up, cooks? It's your boy, the hater, up in this piece. And I couldn't help but thinking, for some reason, all these things that are happening now on like Raw and SmackDown with respect to the tag team titles, right? So the champions were, at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the season, if you will, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Essentially, you can call it what you want. They're a throwaway team. Oh, hater, they were El Generico and Kevin Steen. I don't give a damn. You know what I'm saying? Like, in WWE, they're essentially two failed potential main eventers who have to be thrown together in a tag team. Call it like it is, motherfuckers. Remember that time when Edge and Randy Orton formed Rated RKO? Well, I remember that time very well. I remember thinking, I'm like, oh my god, this is what it's come to? Like, now they're both mid-card jobbers? I guess it's just Cena and Batista, right? Because they were just like, all of a sudden, they're a tag team. Now, granted, they feuded with DX and things like that, so it turned into something. But nevertheless, right, when two main event type guys are put in a tag team, that's just the consolation prize. You know what I'm saying? Like people wanted Sami Zayn to beat Roman Reigns, and long story short, he ends up with Kevin Owens in a tag team. But it's neither here nor there, right? After them, it was the legitimate team of fucking Judgment Day, right? For better or for worse, they are a team. They are a faction, right? Now, all of a sudden, it's Jey Uso and Cookie Rhodes. Now, the underpinnings of this are such that we're supposed to expect that Cookie Rhodes and Jey Uso are these two, like, basically main eventers, right? I mean, after all, one of them is called Main Event Jey Uso, and the other one is Cookie Rhodes, the WrestleMania main eventer, right? But it doesn't take away the stink of the mid-carder in both of these jobbers, right? These are the facts, motherfuckers. I'm not the one making this up. This is just how it is. And with that being said, we find ourselves at an impasse. All of a sudden, Kevin Owens is now on SmackDown. Cookie Rhodes and Jey Uso, first they're on Raw, then they're now they're on SmackDown as well because they're the tag team champions, and all this other stupid crap, right? Meanwhile, hanging back, we have Roman Reigns, who is the only main eventer left in this company. Let's be honest, right? You know, Drew McIntyre, back in the mid-card. At WrestleMania, he's feuding with Sheamus and Gunther. Sheamus and Drew McIntyre represent basically Edge and Randy Orton in the metaphor that I just gave, right? They are two guys that used to be big deals, right? Especially Sheamus. Drew McIntyre had like a brief WrestleMania run, basically, right? They used to be champions, and now all of a sudden, they're back in the mid-card with Gunther, right? So that's the true mark of a main eventer versus a mid-carder, right? If Roman Reigns tomorrow loses the Universal title, whatever the fuck it's called now, the new belt, if he loses that, there is a 0% chance that Roman Reigns is going to go feud with fucking Austin Theory or Rey Mysterio, I guess, for the US title. You know what I mean? That's just not going to happen, right? Because he's a real main eventer. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, what's wrong with mid-carders? Absolutely nothing, motherfuckers. Absolutely nothing. But when there's only mid-carders, right? And there's this 50-50 booking on top of it, it's like, why do I care about this? You know what I mean? Why would I care if tomorrow Cody Rhodes wins the title, if the next WrestleMania he's feuding for the UK title? You know what I mean? Nothing is being done correctly in this shit company at this point. Let's be real. You know what I mean? Let's say it like it is, right? Roman Reigns is essentially like, I mean, to call him a part-timer is a compliment at this point, right? I like Roman Reigns, but this is inexcusable. Inexcusable. He's not Brock Lesnar in any capacity. Like, he's not as big of a star. He's not as believable, right? And it doesn't fit his attitude, right? He's supposed to be the tribal chief. Brock Lesnar is the guy that doesn't give a shit. He's there for the money, right? That's like part of his character, kind of. Right? Roman Reigns cares a lot, right? He wants to be the tribal chief. And all of a sudden we have, now in the main event scene every week, it seems, we have basically the fallout of Roman Reigns' balls, right? We have the people that look up to him, the people that can't beat him, right? And main event Jey Uso, who's both, right? All of a sudden, Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso are in the main event. Are you kidding me? Jimmy Uso too? No? Oh, Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso versus like Cookie Rhodes and Jey Uso. Who gives a shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you even hear like what that match sounds like? You have one Uso on one side, the other Uso on the other side, and then they each have a partner that is weird, right? Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso is a horrible idea, and it's going to lead to nothing good. It might lead to Cody Rhodes winning the Rumble again. Who knows? It's looking like it's going to be LA Knight, you know? One of my fans, I believe it was Kadarius, he made a good point. You know, like, oftentimes, I don't acknowledge the good points when I see them, right? Now, it's rare, right? Because the hater is typically right about these things. But the truth is, it is what it is, right? The reality is, as Kadarius pointed out, he basically said, long story short, he doesn't see what the big deal is with LA Knight. And honestly, it got me thinking a little bit, you know? It's kind of like I was saying the same thing about Gunther, right? It's just a guy that's inexplicably popular. Now, the only difference is that I like LA Knight, and I always have, right? Because in my opinion, he embodies the look and the personality of a wrestler. But let's not get it twisted, motherfucks. LA Knight is good for the current product, right? In the Attitude Era, he could very well end up being a Shawn Stasiak, right? He doesn't have this unparalleled charisma. He has unparalleled charisma when compared to Seth Rollins. You know, he has infinite charisma when compared to Jey Uso or maybe Cody Rhodes, right? But compared to like The Rock, it's not even close. He's he'd be like a Val Venus probably, you know what I mean? Which no shame again, right? And you know, the times have changed. LA Knight is doing the best he can, and I still love LA Knight. But think about that. Even your boy, the hater, whose name is based on the fact that I like to hate on shit, right? Even I kind of fell for it a little bit, right? And I'll be the first to admit, I kind of fell for it with Gunther too. I'm like, oh, this guy's interesting. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a second. Oh, no. Like, every time I think something, every time I have an opinion or a belief, once in a while, I come to a point where I'm like, okay, why do I believe this, right? And that's a very good strategy. Why do I believe that this guy's good or bad, right? And if I can't give a good answer, I change my mind. I'm not going to just sit here and completely hammering at the wall, right? Oh, okay, Karrion Kross. I'm like, let's see what the big deal is about this guy. Then I'm like, why do people like this guy? I couldn't think of one reason. So therefore, he sucks, motherfucks. You know what I mean? LA Knight, I can still think of some reasons, but I will admit, Kadarius was more right than wrong, right? That a lot of the reasons are essentially extensions of the fans' desire for a main eventer because all we have are mid-carders. So by comparison, LA Knight looks like The Rock, right? Because you're like, oh my god, I'm tired of seeing Solo Sikoa, who would be a jobber in the Attitude Era. He's like 6 foot and like fat, right? And this guy's supposed to be like a threat or something? Are you kidding me? With blonde hair? Rikishi's son. Rikishi was a jobber, and he's better than all his sons, right? So, you know, the truth is what the truth is, right? It's like, do this. Go on WWE.com right now and go on whatever. It's Monday night, so I haven't watched it because I was working all day, but go. I bet you if you go and you look at the results, if they're up already, right? You look at the results, you will see, motherfucks, you will see that the main event was probably some horseshit. It was probably like the Judgment Day versus Cody Rhodes or something, you know, something that probably not Cody Rhodes because he never wrestles either, right? But it was probably some jobberish. Not probably, it definitely was some jobberish main event because there are no main eventers, right? At this point, I'm looking forward to Jade Cargill, you know what I mean? That's how bad things have gotten, right? She at least is a main eventer for the women, right? It's like, all right, she's believable in many ways, but things have gotten so bad that now they can just literally get away with like putting Jimmy Uso versus LA Knight in the main event. I mean, I like LA Knight, but Jimmy Uso? Even so, like last year, that would be like a pre-show match. The Usos used to be pre-show jobbers, motherfucks. So what is it that we find ourselves doing here, right? Nothing good, motherfucks. Nothing good. And the truth is what the truth is. And the reality of the situation is that we need someone to be established as a legitimate main eventer, right? This idea that someone loses the mid-card title, right, and goes for the main event title, for the main title, is what makes sense. The opposite is a step backwards and makes no sense, and more importantly, nobody wants to see it, right? Like, a great example would once again be Cody Rhodes, right? I gotta finish the story. Congratulations, you're tag team champions with Jey Uso, a team that if the Dudleys were around, they would come, they would squash them completely and powerbomb them both through tables, right? That's what would happen. But yet here we are, motherfucks. It's 2023, almost 2024, and we have no main eventers. In fact, ironically, one of the only main eventers that WWE had, one of the only legitimate people that he had, and you can go back and look at my videos for the past few years, I've been saying it should be Edge versus Roman Reigns. That is the match to make, right? And that still is the match to make. You know, like if they were smart, they would have made it so the bloodline sticks around and they feud with Judgment Day, right? Even without Dominic, it doesn't matter. And Edge is the head of that. Roman is the head of that. Spear versus Spear, faction versus faction. You can build up to it at Survivor Series. A nice heel versus heel dynamic where one of them can kind of turn face towards WrestleMania, right? If they were smart, they would have put Christian in there. They would have paid him the money, put him as part of Judgment Day, made him like, I love Christian, but he doesn't have to be like co-leader. He can be the lackey of Edge. I don't care. Then you can do something with that later, right? The idea is that was the match to make, right? But instead, they waste our time with Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns. It's like, What is this? This would be the equivalent of all of a sudden, Stone Cold is the champion at WrestleMania, and I don't know, Bob Holly wins the Royal Rumble, and all of a sudden it's Bob Holly versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania. Have you lost your mind? That's like a throwaway match on a Raw, if that, right? So that's the problem, right? We need main eventers more than ever, and we need the main eventers that are around, right, to be around, right? Roman Reigns, Randy Orton needs to come back, hopefully soon, right? That's going to kind of boost it up a little bit, where you're going to feel a little bit like, oh, there's a main eventer here. John Cena, he's been around like for a while now. Like, it's been like a month, it feels like. So, we need more of this, right? And we need the main eventers to act like main eventers. John Cena comes and acts like an old timer. He's like, oh, like, I'm not gonna interfere. You're fucking John Cena. You know what I'm saying? Like imagine if Hulk Hogan came back in like 2006 or whatever, and people were like, you don't have what it takes, Hogan. And he's like, hey, I'm not arguing with you. You know what I mean? That's like kind of like what John Cena does. Then he'll come in and do an AA at the end or something, right? But it's like, we need real main eventers, and this is the time to build a lot of them, because there aren't any. So it's like, you can just make someone a main eventer, right? If LA Knight is to be a main eventer, he should stop feuding with people like Jimmy Uso, and he should be in a feud with, like, at minimum, like Dolph Ziggler. I mean, Dolph Ziggler's gone, sorry. At a minimum, Drew McIntyre or Lashley. That's where it needs to be. Or maybe like a Rey Mysterio, right? If he was like a heel, right? Someone with some credibility, right? Rey Mysterio should get at least one more title run, because the alternative is that the champion is Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins, who, let's be real, he is the Neymar of wrestling, right? Except for with Neymar, people actually say it. Seth Rollins has not reached his potential. He needs to be a main eventer, and he just feels like a forced main eventer. He feels like Kofi Kingston, except they did it multiple times. Doesn't it? Doesn't he feel exactly like that? Where it's like every once in a while, Seth Rollins will be like in the main event, and he'll have like a world title. In this case, it's a meaningless world title. But 2 months before that, he's feuding with Montez Ford over the U.S. title. You're like, who the hell wants to watch that shit, right? Hopefully he drops it soon, because, he's probably going to keep it to WrestleMania, because at this point, Seth Rollins is like a main eventer, because there's nobody else that can fill that spot, right? AJ Styles, all these guys, they're getting older, and they're not really main eventers either. They're a bunch of Seth Rollins, right? We need a main eventer. You know what else we need? A big wrestler, right? Not Omos, but a big, good wrestler. More on that later, cucks.